Hi, everyone. Jane Applegath, founder of the Epic Vision Zone Conversations That Inspire. Each show, we offer you an inspiring person or message to bring you closer to your big dream so that you can live your epic life now. Thank you for being here. Be sure to listen to the audio version on your favorite app. And if watching on YouTube, be sure to go ahead and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Brene Brown wrote, "Authenticity is the daily practice of who we think we are supposed to be and embracing who we truly are." Dr. Monica Cox teaches individuals how to live life authentically so that they can emerge confident and whole. She is a disruptor, trailblazer, change agent, and leader who believes in living an authentic life. Growing up in rural Southeast Alabama, Monica was raised by her educator parents to persist in the face of personal and professional adversity. She is a 2020 Fellow of the American Society of Engineering Education, a distinguished professor of engineering, and former department chair at The Ohio State University, with over 130 publications, plus a presidential award for research and much more. As a coach, professor, and consultant, Monica guides clients in areas of career development, DEI, and business strategy. Her passion is educating and guiding others on journeys that connect the core of who they are with the legacies they want to leave. Her weekly podcast, Stop Playing Diversity, Monica dives into real-world DEI topics that are often not talked about. With her direct signature style, she presents pearls of wisdom and offers affirmations to help listeners emerge wiser, bolder, and stronger in the workplace. Her unique experiences and fearless attitude make her an inspiring and informative voice in the world of academia and beyond. Welcome, Dr. Monica Cox. So nice to have you here today.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here, Jane. Thanks for just that introduction and just the enthusiasm for the message. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. It's all you. And I'd love to get started here at the beginning. So, what inspired you, Monica, to do the work that you do today?
I come from great people. You talked about my coming from rural Alabama, and now that both of my parents are no longer with me, I really focus a lot on my ancestors and on the people who have sown seeds in me. So they always focused on the community, on excellence, and on making sure that when we leave this earth, we leave it better than we found it. So my journey just started from my people and the values they instilled in me.
Wonderful. To leave it better than what you found, how you found it. I love that. So true. Well, what is the biggest obstacle you have overcome in your own life?
Um, the older I get, the more I realize that grief is a lot. And
Mm.
I never expected to feel the grief that I've had. Particularly, I mentioned the loss of my parents, and those unexpected situations happen when you least expect them. And it's having to move forward and continue and focus on a legacy and focus on the bigger picture as I do it without the people who instilled so much in me. So even as the holidays approach, I often think about that and what a new normal looks like when you're kind of not in control the way that you would think that you would be in control. So I don't have a very specific answer, but it's more of an overall response that's informed from loss and from just living a life
Right.
that is sometimes unexpected.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that's all we do have is change. I know we love to plan and control. That's our reptilian brain. It says be safe. So therefore, things shouldn't change, but they do. But yes, absolutely. I certainly resonate with that as well. And thank you for sharing. Well, let's delve into the topic that I love, where you're a coach in authenticity. What does it mean to be authentic, and how do we create it?
Well, authenticity is the core of who you are. It is unapologetic. It goes back to who you were created to be. It's connected back to gifts and our talents and to flowing in a way that represents our joy and represents who we really are. So you become authentic when you acknowledge um, that it's kind of an inner thing. It's a mindset, and it starts with saying that I don't have to be something other than who I'm supposed to be. So that is one way to foster it, and that's what I tell people. It's the unapologetic part.
Right. Unapologetically being yourself. It's like Brown said, it's not the who we should be, which is often instilled in us, not just through our parents, but through our education, our societies, our cultures. There's so much that comes at us when we're young, but it's not until we get older and wiser that we realize, wait a minute, that doesn't represent who I really feel I am.
Right.
And therein lies the core, right? So, yes, absolutely. And it's not an easy journey. Authenticity is, we're discovering our authenticity, right? All the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it does come with rejection sometimes.
Mm,
I think
yes.
that's the risk that you take, where you show up without the mask and without pretense, and sometimes people don't like that, but you have to enter and say, "This is who I want to show up as," and it's their problem if they have an issue with my authenticity, not mine.
Right. Yes. And that takes practice because we all like to get along, or at least some of us. But anyway, thank you so much for that insight because, yes, I agree 100%. So I know we touched on this a little bit, getting through challenges, because we talked about, the some of the an obstacle that you've mentioned was one of them was grief. So how do you
Yeah.
guide your clients through challenges?
Well, I think it comes back to that core of authenticity where you have to be honest about what your challenges are in the moment. So I really want my clients to get back to their core. I want them to think about who they ideally want to be, independent of a workplace or the views of people around them. And once we get to that core, we're able to then figure out how we can navigate. Our journeys, how they navigate their journeys across their personal and professional lives. So it comes back to that core that I continue to move back through. And I think so often we lose it because we are distracted. So it's about clarity.
Yeah, I love that. We're distracted. And these days there's even more to distract us. It's we need to have those blinders like they put on horses so that we can just
Mm,
see through, this way and focus because you're
absolutely.
absolutely right. There's so much to distract us these days. So, explain performative and authentic diversity and how to move from one to the other. I'm really curious about these.
Yeah, so performative diversity is often saying what people expect you to say. It's the lip service, sometimes it's the checklist that we see. And it's just what it is performing. It's like a form of acting. And when you're thinking about authentic diversity, it's admitting that you aren't perfect in this journey. It's saying that you have more to learn. It's acknowledging when you fail or when you get something wrong, and it's really focused on systemic change, not just um, a me focus, but it's an others focus. It's making sure that, as I said at the beginning of this session, we leave the earth better than we are. When we truly care about people and we're doing what we can within our power to make sure that they are included in larger society, that's our move to authentic diversity.
Mm. Yes, now it's very clear. It's almost exactly what you were teaching about ourselves being authentic, where the performative
Yes,
is ticking the boxes almost. You know, you've got your list and it's like, okay, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, but you're not really looking at the authenticity of, okay, well, outside of the boxes, what else is happening? And is that
exactly.
really at the core of what we're representing here? Yeah. That makes
Yes, and it
complete
involves risk.
sense. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said, and it involves risk because it
Ah,
goes back to not really knowing how people are going to respond to it. If we say that we didn't get something right, is someone going to penalize us for it? Are they
mhm.
going to judge us? And when you come back to your core and you understand your purpose for doing what you do, you're bolder and you're more comfortable being authentic in your diversity, equity, and inclusion journey. So it comes back to you
Abs-
as a person and the mindset.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right because then you're standing strong in what you believe in. And then it's it's what you want people to understand, that this is where I am and this is why I'm
Yes.
saying what I'm saying. Exactly. Well, we
Mhm.
often identify with the job that we do. So how do you help clients separate their identity from their jobs as they do the work that matters?
Even though I think people should separate themselves from the job, I think when you're thinking about authenticity and who you are, you still bring elements of yourself to the job, or at least you hope that you can bring elements to yourself to that job. I think where you have to separate, however, is when there's harm to your core. When
Mm,
you are being broken down because your authenticity is not accepted in your workplace or in an environment, that's when you have to really go back to your affirmations. You have to go back to who you are and knowing that you are enough, and that maybe it's the workplace that is the issue and not you. Maybe there's misalignment, but you can never let that place break down your core.
mm. Absolutely. It's a journey that I went through when I had my first full-time job as a stockbroker.
Mhm.
And it was very I was very successful and I made a lot of money. And 5 years into it, I was like, this doesn't resonate. I mean, I didn't know all of this then, and this was back in
Right.
the day when people didn't talk about mindset. They didn't talk about core, why you do things. And I just knew that it didn't feel good. And I quit. I left the industry and people were like dumbfounded. They're like, why? You're so successful. You've got a great book that you've developed and you do very well and blah blah. And I'm like, I couldn't explain it at the time, but I know exactly what you're saying. It's when the work doesn't resonate, something doesn't feel right, and that's
Exactly.
because you're out of alignment. Right, you're out of alignment with your core, with your you could say your values or what's instilled in you and who you really authentically are. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can associate with that completely. So, leadership development, give us some insight into your leadership development coaching, because this is an area where women now are stepping into and stepping up to this platform.
Right. So it comes back to the theme that I've continued when we're talking about authenticity. There are so many women who are suffering in the workplace because they are trying to perform in ways that are not aligned with who they are. So, in terms of leadership development, I want people to know who they are and then really vet organizations to see if those organizations are places where they can thrive, where they can
Mm,
succeed as leaders, where they will be supported and protected as leaders to do the job that they are supposed to do. There's even literature that talks about the glass cliff and people being pushed off of that cliff in organizations that are not ready for assertive women, or are not ready for women who are going to actually do the job and make sure that the environment is equitable. So the leadership development comes back from just constantly reflecting and understanding when a move is made, similar to the one that you mentioned in your story. We want to be whole. We want to be bold. We want to be there for ourselves and for our families and for our communities. And sometimes that means that we move as leaders in a really different way. So that's what the development is about. It is about centering the people I work with and seeing that as not being selfish, but actually something that is going to preserve them and really help those who they are leading in the process.
Hmm. I love that. So that's your homework when you're looking for jobs. It's not always about you being interviewed, but you vet the organization as well so that
Yes.
you can see if there's alignment there. You know, when I was younger, we never did that. I mean, you applied for a job and you crossed your fingers and said, "Oh, I hope I get the job," because of whatever job that might have been. But yes, absolutely. And that I'm not sure if the I know young people change their jobs often, so maybe they
Mhm.
aren't vetting the organization, but they're not afraid to change jobs many times if they're not happy. But that is excellent advice, and move in the direction of where you feel you are going to be whole. I love that. I love that
Yes.
verbiage, being whole. Yeah.
Absolutely. And may I add one more thing about that? I think it's also looking beyond the titles and the
Mm.
accolades. So often we think that if we are in a certain position, a CEO position, or in higher ed, if I'm a president, a provost, or a dean, then that means that I have arrived. But there's this mindset shift where we know that we're a leader no matter what the position. And when you understand that your leadership happens at the table, outside the table, in the community, in the meeting, in every place where you are, I think that allows you to truly flow as a leader and to expand the territory and the influence that you have too. So that's what I try to teach people too. It's very non traditional, but we have to get out of the very traditional mindset of what value looks like in an organization. We enter with value, we will leave with value, and
Mm.
nothing that happens to that organization can shake that.
Mm. That's gold nuggets there. Absolutely. I love it. It's going outside the box and taking a look at the whole as well as how it makes you feel and whether or not that resonates with you. But yes, because we're all tempted by the titles. I mean, they're like
Mhm.
candy, especially
Yes,
if you're
yes.
if you're that way inclined, but you're absolutely right. Once you shift your mindset to say what is good for me, not just the name or the title or the company, it paints a whole different picture, and you approach it in a whole different way. And in fact, you would approach it, I would feel, with more confidence because whatever
Absolutely.
position you're in, you're already a leader, right?
You
We
are.
have to lead our
You are.
lives first,
Yes,
you know.
and it's about surrounding yourself with the community that supports that too. Because there are sometimes tensions with people who, as you mentioned, will question us. Why are you
Mm,
leaving that job? Why are you leaving good money on the table? Well, you know what? That's not who you need to be around right now. You need to be around the people who say, I understand, Jane, that you're doing what you need to for you. I know that there's better for you out there, and that's a mindset as well. That's something that we sometimes have to do on this journey. We grow in different ways, and as we grow, we sometimes shift who's in our
right.
circle, and that's scary too. So all of this is about risk taking from top to bottom. It's a lot.
Yes. It's definitely learning to be outside your comfort zone, because
It
that
is.
therein lies the core. Because when we do, we grow. That's the only way we grow, is when we take our toe and do that little step and then do another step and another step, and they go, well, you know what, I'm still here. it wasn't so bad,
Yes.
or maybe it was, but
Mhm.
I'm still here. So thank you
Yes.
for that, Monica. That was great. No, so here's something that sort of flows in with that. Toxic workplaces. How does someone create an actionable, strategic plan to walk away from a toxic workplace?
Yes, this is a hard question, and I feel that it's like one of those, million-dollar questions. And I think you do have to look at a system. I love systems. And unfortunately, many people cannot just walk away because they have people who rely on them and they have other situations that are going on. But I think it starts back with, of course, the mind, and it's making a decision to say, I want to move away from this space. And it's also about being very strategic and setting a plan. Um, I always tell people you have to be practical. If you have bills to pay, if you are a caregiver, if there are certain things that um, will prevent you from moving forward, you do need to take that into consideration. But you also need um, to evaluate what is necessary for you given what is happening, in your personal life. You need to also make sure that you communicate your plan with other people who will be impacted. And so I think the core of what I want to say is strategy is very important. Make up your mind that this is what you want to do, create a plan, then execute the plan in a way that promotes you and make sure that you are whole and safe.
Yes, absolutely, because it can be very scary. Like you said, you have to take a look at what's happening in your life if you have responsibilities.
Yes.
Yeah, that sort
And
of
I'm
thing. And then go ahead.
No, I was saying, I know that I speak about that because also, I mentioned the caregiving that I had with my parents. My mother was ill and required 24-hour care for 5 years. And I was an only child who lived about 800 miles away. So
Mm.
it wasn't just about me in that example. And I think there are so many people who are just not on an island and they have to think about everything holistically. So I speak from that perspective of someone who has always had to be strategic about how I move, but also realize that I have to be whole and healthy to take care of the people I love as well. So it really is a balancing act for many people. And that's where I recommend therapy. I recommend our communities. I recommend whatever we need to do to make sure that we are getting the support we need as we transition out of toxic spaces too. So it's not just about us, it is the community that we create as we move in those spaces.
Such good advice. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. Well, building a positive workspace. This is an area where I know is one of your, where you're an expert. Tell us about applying DEI concepts to help build and sustain a positive workplace.
Yes, I think so. Often when you hear people talk about DEI, it sounds really controversial and very nasty sometimes, where people think it's just an ugly thing. But if you go back to the basic principles of organizations and infrastructure, you'll notice that systems are supposed to have policies, processes, ways of working. And there's those policies, processes, and ways of working are supposed to be transparent to the people in that system. That means that we should know how we are compensated, we should know how we're promoted, we should understand how we move, how the responsibilities connect to each other. And DI in a workplace is about that clarity. It is about making sure that people are safe. I say this all the time in the environment, that they know what the expectations are of them and they know what it takes to move in that community of work. So, I kind of want to present it there where it's making sure that what we say and what we do is real for everyone in an organization. For example, looking at pay, we want to make sure someone's not getting paid more just because of their gender. We want to make sure that if there are complaints, that everyone's complaints are listened to and that they are responded to in a way that is equitable. And so it really is about the consistency. It's about accountability. It's about the infrastructure, and it's about clarity.
Mm. Yes, when that's a great way to look at it and to bring it forward because you're right. I mean, there's been so much talk about DEI and a lot of people, hear those words or those initials and they're either, you know, they have one side or the other side, and the way you've just described it is absolutely the way that it should be presented because like you said, putting systems in place so that there is accountability for whatever side it might be, whether it's pay, whether it's vacation time, et cetera, the job itself. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that insight. That was a really good explanation. So,
Thank you.
life strategies. What are some strategies and tools that we can use to enhance our personal and professional life?
I think I love reflection. I love assessment. I love evaluation. And I love just taking time to process the lessons that we've learned. I'll use the pandemic as an example.
Mhm.
It's something that all of us went through. And I'm sure that it impacted us in different ways, but it impacted us. And for some people, they're slowing down. Other people are moving outside of their work environments. But I think when something like that happens, we have to deliberately place time, put time aside to reflect. What does this mean for me now? Where do I go next? Who am I as a result of this? Who do I want to be in 5 years? Is there something that, is there someone I need to add to my life? Is there someone I need to remove from my life? And it's just simply reflecting.
Mm. Interesting. We don't give ourselves the time to reflect.
Mm-mm.
Therein lies the conflict, right? We go, 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 go. And in this world today with even more distractions, we don't give our I call it the space. I call it static because there's always
Yeah,
something going on. And it's in the stillness that we find the wisdom. And
absolutely.
that's something that the reflection, when you sit down and go, okay, this has happened, and where do we go from here? What do I feel fits me now? Because you're right, absolutely, things have changed completely. The workplace, the workspace,
Hmm.
individuals' lives were, I loved working at home. I didn't love working at home. I
Right.
gas prices have, I mean, these are some of the things, now I spend more money getting to work. A lot of the schools have canceled their after hours programs. So now I have to
Yes.
find a sitter. I mean, it just goes on and on, but you're right. Just sit down and give yourself the time to reflect. Yes, that is such good guidance and coaching. It sounds
Yes. And one
simple.
of it
Go ahead.
does. No, and I
But
was
it's
saying
not.
one other piece about that. Absolutely. It's about the peace that comes with it too. And that's something that I'm learning. So often we'll have so much noise and there are
Mm,
things that agitate us. I think, so many people are anxious. And I have learned in that space, if I have 10 things that can consume me, what are the things that bring me peace? Why do
mm,
I continue to have the agitation about something else? Like if there's a new project and I just don't feel good about it, like I don't know if that's the place I'm supposed to move in, pay attention to that. You may not have all the details, but many times our bodies, our minds tell us something that we sometimes are not yet able to process. And that's the beauty in reflection and in being really aware and attuned to where we're supposed to be at certain points in our lives. I was listening to a book, and I might have to share it with you afterward because I can't remember it at this point, but it talked about self care. And so often we're thinking self care is an activity like, oh, I want to do yoga. Oh, I need to go, read a book. But if your self care is stressing you out, is it really self care?
Mm.
So pay attention to how we beat ourselves up because we don't do certain things, because that's maybe not what we're supposed to do. What is the deeper issue? What is the systemic issue? What is causing us to have the stress that is even associated with the things that we think are going to give us rest?
Wow, Monica, that's an entire chapter. That's a book.
I think it is
Seriously.
someone's book. I heard it on a podcast. I was like, hold it. So it's reframing, it's really thinking.
Yes, absolutely. Because you're right. I mean, a lot of people do this self care, and the self care is stressing them out, which is, it's defeating the entire purpose. But I've never heard anybody say that before. Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Absolutely. Yes. Reflection. And it's also, you, like you said, awareness and women's intuition. You were saying about if it doesn't, something doesn't feel right, we have really good intuition, and it really does, it is sending us a message. The thing is that often we don't listen to it, and then we usually pay the price later on. But you're absolutely right. Reflection and listening to our gut, our intuition. Thank you, I love that. That was fabulous. Well, here's something. Tell us about your podcast, Stop Playing Diversity.
Yes. So there's a little story there because I would just talk. I would talk to people, or I would try to talk to people similar to how I'm speaking with you. And they would always be these water cooler conversations or a telephone call. And people just kept telling me, you need to share this with the world. There are nuggets, there are things and insights, ways that people need to think about life that are not happening at work or in their environments. And that's when I would literally just get my phone, use an app, record what I said for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and upload it as the Stop Playing Diversity podcast. Remember, I told you about stress. That was one other thing. I was thinking I didn't have a production team, I didn't have an editing team. Oh, I cannot do the podcast. But I found a way to make it very simple and just share information. So, 80 episodes later, I now have episodes that are really addressing issues that people are facing, but maybe thought they were alone as they were engaging. So that's what the podcast is about. It's me sharing my heart with people and hoping that they know they're not alone as they navigate work and as they try to transform systems.
Mm, thank you for that. And everyone, check it out, because it sounds, I love that you say that they're little snippets, because, those are often a lot more powerful than, going on a particular subject, which we know many people can do. But yes, absolutely. Yes, when you've got a point, you get to it. And I'm sure it resonates with so many people because it is very popular. So tell our audience where they can connect with you, Monica.
So I am on all social media platforms at Dr. Monica Cox. I am also a new author, so I write fiction and nonfiction. So you can find me at author Monica Cox as well. You can email me info at drmonicacox.com, where I have my website. I have a lot of offerings, and I'm just always available via DM on social media. So read something on whatever platform, because my message is different across platforms, and use whatever information I share to think and to hopefully live a more authentic life.
Mm. Well, thank you for that. I didn't know you wrote fiction as well. What genre is it?
It is women's literature, And it's a love story, kind of romance a little bit. And it comes back to women at work, a woman at work who was an engineering professor, and there was a little bit of toxicity, and she had to make a choice as an entrepreneur about how she wanted to move forward. So my first book is called Legacy Unleashed. Unleashed is a little spicy for anyone who needs to know, but it was also about healing. Like, I did not know that I could write fiction, but I ended up getting a publisher who accepted it, and I have just submitted my second book, which will be released on February. Well, I don't know if I could put the date, but in 2024, and it's a new thing. It is therapeutic. It is my self-care. It is my reflection. And, linking it back to what I said earlier, sometimes we just don't know the gifts that we have until we're silent. And you just realize, I'm going to try this and I'm good at it. So in this
Yeah.
space, I realized that as an engineering professor, as an entrepreneur, I also can write fiction that is accepted by real publishers and resonates with a larger audience. So go figure.
Good for you. I love it. And you're right. You know that you don't know what you can do until you try.
Yes.
Absolutely. I agree 100% because when I started the Epic Vision Zone, I had no
Yes.
idea I'd be doing it years after COVID. That's when I started it. And I
Mm.
said, well, I'll give it a shot. And I was nervous and stilted and whatever. Now I just thoroughly enjoy it because it's all about learning. It's all about connecting with new individuals. And it's all about sharing that information and those resources with other women, telling their stories so that, like you said, where you realize and you're not alone. Or there's those tidbits of vital information or an aha goes off. And I just love that because every time I speak with individuals like yourself, I learn something too. I'm not the only one that must be filled with joy when I learn something because I learning is growing. So absolutely try it before you say you don't like it or you can't do it. So kudos to
Yes.
you. That's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
I've got to get my hands on one of those novels now. I'm really curious. Thank you for sharing. Well, Monica, if there was one critical message you could share with the world, what would it be?
I said this recently, and it's about healing. I mentioned grief. I mentioned, just so much is happening in the world. And
Mm,
I've met so many people who are hopeless. And I think that's a part of my message too, where I want to connect with people and tell them, even if they can't see what the future looks like, there are possibilities. And I just want to tell people to stand, even if um, the days look dark, even if they don't yet see what they want to see, because you stand one day and the next day you stand, maybe you will run one day, and one day just complete the marathon that you never thought that you could complete. So it's about little snippets of success. And even when there's defeat, knowing that a new day is coming and you can make it. So it's encouragement. That's what I do. Like, at the end of my podcast episodes, I give affirmations because I feel that
mm.
people need to speak to themselves. They need to remind themselves who they are. And that is the nugget. We're enough, always enough, no matter what happens. Just continue.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. And because we're here
Thank
on the Epic Vision Zone, I have one last question. If your life were an epic story, what would the
you.
title be?
I do have another book that's coming out too in 2024, and I think I'll use that, and it would be Never Defeated.
Mm, perfect.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That fits in with exactly what you were just saying about every day take another step. And even if it's a setback, the next day will be another step forward. Absolutely. Never defeated. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Monica, again for joining us here today. And once again, for information to connect with Monica, you can go to the Epic Vision Zone bio pages where we will have all of her contact information and her social media. So be sure to check that out and follow me on Instagram. And don't forget to connect with me at janeapplegath.com, where you can download Creative Power and Vision Play. And sending you much love and greatness, this is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic success.